My alpha husband handed me over to the CEO of Enigma just to get a promotion. You're just a low-level Omega. No matter what he does to you, you won't get pregnant. Once Barrett gets tired of playing with you, I'll take you back home. That was the last thing my husband said before he left, and then Barrett took me in. But Barrett wasn't at all like the powerful, ruthless man I had imagined. He treated me with a kind of gentleness and respect I'd never experienced before. Even during my heat, he never hurt me, he endured it all on his own. Eventually, under his love and care, I ended up getting pregnant. But just as I was about to tell him the news, I overheard him talking to his brother. He was just a stand-in. Now that Colin's back, it's time to get rid of him. 1. It's so hot, so uncomfortable. I was lying on a hotel bed, my body twisting in agony. Tears slid down the corners of my eyes. Calvin really gave me away. Archie, this promotion means everything to me. I've worked so hard for so many years. This is my only chance. Please help me. I remembered how Calvin had been on his knees this morning, crying at my feet. My heart shattered right then. You're a low-level Omega. You won't get pregnant no matter what. Once Barrett gets bored of you, I'll bring you home. He had sobbed uncontrollably, swearing to me that once I came back, he wouldn't think I was dirty. He said he'd love me even more than before. I had clearly shaken my head and refused. In the capital, everyone knows how cold and ruthless Barrett is, decisive and unforgiving. He absolutely despises being manipulated. Sending someone to his bed was basically a death sentence. I had never met Barrett before. If I ended up in his bed, there's no way he'd let me go. But Calvin ignored my protests and knocked me out. When I opened my eyes, it was the first day of my heat. The entire room was filled with the scent of my pheromones. The air was thick with the fragrance of mountain laurel. I bit my lip, trying to control my increasingly ragged breathing. That bastard Calvin had tied me to the bed with rope. I couldn't even call for help if I wanted to. Sweat kept pouring down my body, and the desire inside me was growing stronger and stronger. Just then, the door opened. Barrett walked in, loosening his tie and rubbing his temple. Almost the moment he stepped into the room, an overwhelming and dominant scent filled the air, his alpha pheromones, sharp and aggressive. I let out a faint gasp. He immediately noticed the unfamiliar scent. His space had been invaded, his pheromones flared in response. Full of territorial pressure, he slowly walked toward me, his brow tightly furrowed. As I stared at his tall figure and broad shoulders, every nerve in my body trembled with fear. 2. Barrett stopped right in front of the bed. The dim yellow light cast shadows over his face. I couldn't tell what he was feeling. I narrowed my eyes, doing everything I could not to make any humiliating sounds. Who are you? Barrett grabbed my chin and studied my face. I was shaking all over. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but the second he saw my face, the aggressive edge of his pheromones suddenly disappeared. Archie, I mumbled. A flush crept up my cheeks. I was so ashamed I couldn't even meet his gaze. He must think I'm a shameless, seductive Omega just throwing myself at him. He's going to humiliate me for sure. Wave after wave of heat kept crashing over me. Barrett's long fingers were still resting under my chin. My body was getting weaker and weaker. As a low-level Omega, I couldn't control my own body very well. Especially during heat, my instinctual desire for an alpha could completely override my reason. Right now, Barrett's knuckle was resting just under my lips. It was like someone wandering the desert for a month suddenly seeing fresh spring water. I couldn't help it. Damn, instincts were faster than my brain. I stuck out my tongue and took his finger into my mouth. The next second, everything went black. 3. When I woke up again, the room was empty. My body no longer felt feverish, only the cool sensation of the suppressant patch on the back of my neck remained. Barrett hadn't thrown me out. In fact, he had even been kind enough to buy me a suppressant patch. I touched the back of my neck and couldn't help but think, Barrett didn't seem like the brutal, heartless man people claimed he was. After cleaning myself up, I headed straight home. What I didn't expect was to find Calvin waiting at the door like he still had any right. The moment I stepped inside, he pulled me into his arms, immediately burying his face into my neck to sniff. Barrett didn't touch you, did he? I knew Calvin only cared about benefits, but even then, I didn't expect him to ignore my well-being and go straight to interrogating me. I couldn't hold back anymore and slapped him across the face. What? Are you disappointed that your wife didn't get used by another man? Calvin, I want a divorce. 4. The divorce went through without any trouble. Later, I heard from a mutual friend that Calvin had gotten his promotion. I just smiled when I heard. Right now, I'm working as a small-time actor on a film set. Today, the director told us the investor would be visiting and we'd all have dinner together tonight. I never imagined that the investor would be Barrett. When his exclusive Maybach pulled up in front of the crew, everyone instinctively turned to look. Right in front of everyone, Barrett stepped out of the car and personally came to pick up Dane, the award-winning actor. I'd heard the gossip before. Dane is a high-level Omega with a powerful family background, and everyone said he was the perfect match for Barrett. I didn't know if Barrett had recognized me when he passed by just now. I hoped he didn't. After dinner, everyone gradually left. As I waited for my ride, Barrett's Maybach pulled up in front of me. Get in. I hesitated, not understanding what Barrett wanted. I was afraid he had recognized me and had come to get his revenge. I was too scared to move. Dane said I should give you a ride. Dane and I had a decent relationship on set, but that didn't mean it was appropriate for his fiancée to give a ride to someone who once dared to climb into his bed. Just then, the car behind honked, staring into Barrett's sharp eyes. I finally, reluctantly, got in the car. Why so timid? You weren't like this when you were sucking on my fingers last time. The second I shut the door and heard him say that, I immediately wanted to open it back up and run for my life. 5. Thankfully, Barrett only made that shocking remark at the beginning. After that, he got busy with work on his tablet. After moving out of Calvin's apartment, I rented a tiny room in a narrow alleyway in the city. Cars couldn't even get in. I planned to walk back on my own, but to my surprise, Barrett actually got out of the car and walked with me. On that pitch-black path, a powerful Enigma silently followed behind me, keeping me safe. I had to admit, it felt a lot safer than walking here alone, always on edge. When we arrived at my door, I felt a little embarrassed and thanked Barrett. He looked at my face quietly, without responding. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. Just as I was wondering what was going on, he suddenly said, "Archie, your face, it's made for the screen." I was caught off guard and grinned stupidly. Back then, I didn't understand the weight of that comment. It wasn't until later, when I was broken beyond repair by him, that I realized how humiliating that sentence actually was. 6. I don't know if I was imagining it, but recently Barrett started showing up on set a lot more. They said he was there for Dane, but the two of them never even spoke. Instead, his gaze lingered on me, with no attempt to hide it. Even the director noticed. It seemed like the big boss had a special interest in me, a nobody. So every day, the director would send me out to make sure I got seen by Barrett. That day, I was filming a wire stunt when something went wrong. The harness lines suddenly snapped, and I plummeted headfirst toward the ground. At the last second, Barrett rushed forward and caught me in his strong arms. He got seriously hurt and had to be taken to the hospital. The doctor said his arm was severely fractured and needed to be put in a cast. I felt so guilty that I insisted on taking care of him while he recovered in the hospital. Every time I fed him, he would sometimes just stare at my face, completely spaced out. After spending those days together, I started feeling more familiar with him. So the next time he zoned out while looking at me, I made a joke. "You're not falling for me, are you?" Before I could even finish, Barrett spoke at the same time. "Archie, do you want to be with me?" I was so shocked I nearly dropped the tray. What? I was only joking. What could he possibly see in me? Besides, didn't he already have a fiancée? 7. Okay, I admit it, I'm despicable. The truth is, when Barrett asked if I wanted to be with him, I was over the moon inside. As a low-rank Omega, even with a decent-looking face, I'd never been pursued by an alpha, let alone someone like Barrett, a rare and powerful enigma. Ever since my secondary gender differentiated, I'd hardly been treated equally. Deep down, I was painfully insecure. So when Barrett said that to me, it felt like winning the lottery. But the fact that he was engaged to Dane hovered over my joy like a cloud. But aren't you with Dane?" I asked cautiously, trying to hide my true feelings. "Just a political match," he replied casually. Maybe it was just me, but there seemed to be a trace of disdain in his voice. "I can't be with you unless you end things with him," I said. Right then and there, Barrett called Dane in front of me and told him the engagement was off. Dane agreed right away. Just like that, I was officially with Barrett. When I returned to the set, beaming with happiness, I ran into Dane and felt a wave of guilt. "Archie, come here for a sec." I had wanted to avoid him, to quietly stay out of his way, but he called out to me. Nervously, I walked over. Dane didn't look nearly as upset as I'd feared. "I should thank you," he said. "If it weren't for you, I'd never have gotten out of that ridiculous engagement. I may be an Omega, but my dream has never been to marry some alpha or enigma. I just want to act. One day, I hope Omegas can have a place in the film industry too. Don't feel guilty about me. I used you first, because your face resembles his." He patted my shoulder, then added one last cryptic remark. "Don't get too lost in the attention of someone at the top. It'll be hard to pull yourself out." 8. I didn't understand what Dane meant back then. All I felt was my face burning with shame. Dane was so confident and outstanding, while I was just plain, except for my looks. If Barrett liked me, it had to be for shallow reasons. Since we got together, Barrett hadn't touched me. He always kept his feelings within respectful limits. Even at the most intimate moments, he'd only gaze at me for a while and kiss my eyes gently. I quickly forgot Dane's warning and fell deeper and deeper for Barrett, this powerful, self-controlled enigma. Eventually, I stopped acting altogether just to stay by Barrett's side, becoming his personal assistant. He treated me really well. He took me to Iceland to see the northern lights, skiing in the Alps, and to Hawaii to watch the ocean. Every time I was at my happiest, he'd cup my face tenderly and tell me to smile more. He gave me joy I'd never known. But after the rush of those moments faded, I often felt an odd emptiness. One morning, I wasn't feeling well. I took a test. I was pregnant. Barrett had never touched me before, not even during his Enigma sensitivity phases. He always said he didn't want to hurt me. I used to be moved to tears by that. No one had ever cared for me that way. This pregnancy was purely the result of one drunken night. After that night, Barrett never laid a hand on me again. Still, against all odds, as a low-rank Omega who usually can't conceive easily, I was pregnant. I decided to tell him the good news. I was sure he'd be happy. 9. I could come and go from Barrett's company freely now. Even his private elevator was set to unlock with my iris scan. So when I rode up to the top floor, no one thought it strange or stopped me. Everyone was used to me having that kind of access. I walked lightly, practically skipping. Then I remembered the little one in my belly and slowed down to be careful. I wanted to surprise him. I quietly turned the doorknob to his office and opened it just a crack. Inside, I heard a man's unfamiliar voice. Was Barrett in a meeting? I was about to close the door and leave quietly when I suddenly heard my name. What are you going to do about Archie? He's just a stand-in. Now that Colin's back, it's time to get rid of him. TCH. Archie got off easy. If it weren't for that face looking like Colin's, there's no way he'd be living the high life with you. If you ask me, it's about time he woke up from his dream. A low-rank Omega like him could never be worthy of an Enigma like you. I stood there at the door like a clown, eavesdropping. I felt cold, colder than the Arctic wind that nearly knocked me over once. So that's how it was. I knew it. What did I have that Barrett could possibly love? I wanted to laugh and cry. Turns out, what I thought was love and respect was nothing more than a favor from someone above. Just my own foolish, desperate fantasy. 10. I held my stomach and slowly closed the door behind me. Then, like a rat crawling back into the sewer, I slunk away. As I wandered the streets, it hit me, this massive city, Jing City. I had nothing. I was nothing. I used to have a job, but I gave it up without hesitation for a love that only existed in my imagination. Turns out, from beginning to end, I was just a tool. Back then, Calvin offered me up to Barrett in exchange for a promotion. Later, Barrett kept me around only because I reminded him of someone else. No one ever truly loved me. The pain overwhelmed me. I crouched down on the sidewalk, gagging. Hey, are you okay? A crisp, warm voice tore through the fog of pain and reached my ears. I must have looked awful, pathetic and disheveled, so I didn't answer. The next second, I fell into a warm embrace. There was a faint citrus scent. I was lifted off the ground, and when I looked up, the person holding me looked eerily like me, only, he was far more refined. So this was Colin, the real Colin Barrett kept bringing up. Compared to him, I was the undisputed knockoff. Why was the world so small? 1 second I was reeling from the pain of his existence, and the next, he burst into my life like a miniature sun. Despite being an Omega, Colin wasn't the least bit frail. He carried me all the way to the nearest hospital without even breaking a sweat. Your face is so pale. Where does it hurt? Just tell the doctor. Don't worry, okay? Colin seemed more concerned about my body than I was, and that made me feel even smaller. So this was what they called being outshone. 11. Colin had the doctors run a full checkup on me. They said my emotional state had triggered hormonal changes that affected the fetus, which explained my extreme reaction earlier. When Colin found out I was pregnant, a flicker of sympathy flashed across his face. I pretended not to notice. Maybe he was just naturally kind, thinking I was a poor Omega, heartbroken and left to fend for myself while carrying a child. So he stayed with me at the hospital. Hi, I'm Colin. What's your name? Archie. Looking at his face, I couldn't help but ask the question that had been gnawing at me. Colin, don't you think I kind of look like you? Maybe it's human nature to compare yourself when someone resembles you, but clearly, Colin wasn't that kind of person. Hearing my question, he furrowed his beautiful brows slightly. Not really. I think you're cuter. He smiled, pinching my cheek with his long fingers. A face this cute shouldn't be wasted by not smiling. 12. Colin spoke to me like he was comforting a kid. After I was discharged from the hospital, we said our goodbyes, but somehow, I found myself following him. Colin wasn't what I expected from a high-tier Omega. I thought he'd be graceful and poised. Instead, he was grabbing skewers at a street food stall and biking to bars on a shared ride. I followed him into one such bar, only to see him meet up with Dane. Dane, still wearing his usual sunglasses and serious expression, broke into a rare smile the moment he saw Colin. I stood off to the side, watching them interact. They were so free, so unrestrained. Maybe I didn't even realize it myself, but the envy on my face must have been painfully obvious. Dane noticed me first. He raised a brow and casually walked over. Archie, wanna join us? I gripped the hem of my shirt, unsure if he was just being polite or actually inviting me. Come on, let's all hang out. Colin had somehow appeared behind me and gently slipped his arm around my waist, nudging me toward their booth. Dane didn't say much more. He slid a drink toward me. No alcohol for you. Gotta take care of the little one. Remember? Colin leaned in close, whispering in my ear with a soft reminder. Why are you two whispering now? Dane teased. I touched my belly gently, and in that moment, Dane's earlier words echoed in my mind. Don't get too attached to the affection of someone in power. Maybe even back then, Dane had been trying to warn me. I just didn't understand it at the time. I'm pregnant. I can't drink, I mumbled, lowering my head. A glass shattered on the floor nearby. You and Barrett aren't even married yet? I had a feeling Dane already knew I was just another disposable substitute now that Colin was back. But maybe he was sparing my pride by not saying it out loud. And at this point, I couldn't bring myself to meet Colin's eyes. He must have figured out that I'd use this face, so similar to his, to worm my way into Barrett's life. 13. Oh come on, Dane, quit being so mean. The silence was broken by Colin's exasperated voice. He came up beside me and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. If you're not feeling great, let's sing. I bet you're a great singer with a voice like yours. I could tell Colin was trying to comfort me, but now that he knew I'd been with Barrett, I couldn't tell what he truly thought. Did he care? Did he mind? Colin. I looked away, embarrassed. Oh, I know what you want to ask. Don't worry, I don't like Barrett at all. If you're sick of him too, then we're on the same team. Colin gave my head a playful ruffle and, seeing my helpless expression, started telling me about his past with Barrett. They grew up together, inseparable as kids, the kind of best friends who could read each other's thoughts. Colin admitted that before he differentiated, he might have had a tiny crush on Barrett, but once he became a high-tier Omega, everything changed. Barrett began rejecting him, even refusing to work with him anymore. He used underhanded tactics to kick Colin out of the company they co-founded. And the reason? Because in Barrett's eyes, an Omega shouldn't be in the public eye. He believed Omegas should stay home, learn etiquette, and wait quietly to be married off. That was the moment Colin stopped liking him. He realized how foolish he'd been, and left the country without looking back. Meanwhile, Barrett began his long hunt for a replacement. Colin. Over the years, there had been no fewer than 8 or 10 substitutes, and every time he heard Colin was back in the country, he'd quickly ditch whoever he was with and try to win Colin back. Colin was utterly disgusted by it. After hearing everything Colin said, I didn't know how to feel. Even as a stand-in, I wasn't the only one. And to think I'd once dared to believe Barrett loved me too. I was just love-starved and delusional. 14. The bar was loud and chaotic, the music drowning out my phone's ringtone. Only after I unlocked my phone did I realize Barrett had called dozens of times. Before, I might have panicked at that, but right then, I only felt a small ripple of emotion inside. Since I was pregnant, I didn't drink with Dane and Colin. After they had their fun, Dane's manager came to take him away, and Colin, drunk, clung to me like a needy kitten. Besides the faint scent of alcohol, I also caught the sweet hint of citrus on him. Colin whined for my attention as I dragged him out of the bar. Just as we stepped outside, our eyes met Barrett's. He was leaning against his Maybach, smoking. Barrett gave me a tired glance, but when he noticed Colin resting on my shoulder, his eyes lit up. Colin. He quickly dropped his cigarette and came toward me, reaching out to take Colin. Get lost. Colin must have smelled Barrett's pheromones, because he straightened up and waved him off like shooing a dog. Barrett's gaze darkened and he froze in place. Colin, don't misunderstand me. Archie is only here because he looks like you. I reluctantly allowed him to stay with me. Those cutting words hurt. I thought I'd cry, but then I remembered Barrett had had countless substitutes, and he always said the same thing whenever Colin showed up. That made me want to laugh instead. No, you're crazy. What misunderstanding? You think those 2 punches I gave you last time weren't enough? Now your face itches and you're looking for a beating? Colin staggered upright, and I nervously steadied his waist from behind. Archie, what are you touching? Barrett barked, his strong Enigma pheromones pressing heavily against me. I instantly trembled, my legs weakening. Barrett, don't you know it's illegal to use pheromones to attack someone? Colin swung a punch without holding back, knocking Barrett's face aside. I'm telling you, I'm more than happy to let Archie touch me. What's it to you? Who cares about your self-absorbed romantic fantasies? Big-headed idiot with your nose stuck in the clouds. Get lost. Don't block my sight. Go cool off somewhere else. Colin grabbed my hand and started pulling me away. At that moment, Barrett, clutching his face, yanked my arm back. 15. Archie, come back with me. I can overlook your disobedience today, Barrett said coldly. Oh please, you just want another beating, don't you? Colin tried to swing again, but I grabbed his arm firmly. Barrett smirked, thinking I was his loyal dog acting clingy to protect him. I pursed my lips and rolled my eyes. Colin, you're hitting too hard, you're turning red. I took Colin's hand and gently blew on it. Let's go. I'll walk you home. Barrett's face turned as dark as a coal stove, while Colin nearly burst out laughing. You're too adorable. Colin's blunt compliment made me blush a little. I tore my arm free from Barrett's grip and went home with Colin. On the way, Colin started acting drunk and silly, so I ended up spending the night on his bed to keep an eye on him. Since we were both Omegas, there was no risk of sparks flying, no need to hide anything. The next morning, I woke up lying beside Colin. He wore a robe, propping his head up leisurely as he stared at me. Seeing a face so similar to mine so close felt strange, so I turned over, hoping to sleep a bit more with my back to him. Are you shy? Colin teased, pouncing and tickling my stomach. I'm extremely ticklish, especially around my waist and belly. When he touched me, I couldn't stop laughing and even lost control of my breathing. Colin, stop messing around. I cupped his face and pushed him away. Just waking up, pheromones were hard to hold back. I smelled his unique citrus scent, and naturally, he sensed my own heather-like pheromone. Barrett once said my pheromones weren't fit for the public eye. Since then, I'd always tried to control them carefully so none leaked out. But today, things had gotten out of hand. I worried Colin might dislike my scent. You, Colin's face flushed deep red. You scared me. I thought that smell was coming from me. At first, I didn't understand. Then I turned my face away and gently pushed him. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Can't scare the little baby. How light-hearted Colin's voice was. I turned to glare at him, blushing, and he grinned, poking my belly with his slender fingers. I'm talking about the baby. 16. After learning I had no permanent home, Colin insisted I stay at his place. I'm settling down here, living alone, and I get lonely. Just keep me company, please. He pouted at me. I knew he said that to protect my pride. It felt good, to be honest. Colin was like a natural little son, truly kind-hearted. Thinking back on how I once secretly compared myself to him made me feel ashamed. Okay, but I have to pay rent. He agreed immediately, so I moved into Colin's home. At first, I tried looking for work outside, until Colin accidentally saw my drawings. You paint beautifully. He held up one of my sketches to the light, and I awkwardly tried to snatch it away. Before differentiation, I loved sketching and painting. My family had noticed my talent and planned to nurture it, but after I differentiated into a low-tier Omega, those plans died. My family cut off my finances and married me off to Calvin. Since then, I hadn't touched a brush. Really, your painting just lacks formal training, but it's clearly gifted. How about this? I'll send you to learn painting properly. Someday, you'll be a famous artist. I froze. I did love painting, but feared failing to live up to Colin's expectations. Oh, don't you want your baby to have a painter dad? It's settled then. When you make it big, don't forget me. Colin was firm. Without missing a beat, he contacted Dane to arrange for a top art teacher to train me. Rediscovering painting gave my life direction again. Though busy as a CEO, Colin made time to join me in the studio and took me to every prenatal checkup. I never expected that when I was 6 months pregnant, I'd run into Barrett at the hospital. 17. At that moment, Colin was carefully supporting me as we chatted and laughed walking out the door. Barrett's car was parked right in front of the entrance. Seeing me come out, he got out of the car. Archie, don't make a scene outside. You're pregnant now. Just come home quietly with me. I'll provide the best medical care. You won't have to worry about a thing. You can rely on me. Barrett's eyes were slightly red. This time, he walked toward me without hesitation, and not once did his gaze fall on Colin beside me. If this had happened before, I might have been moved to tears, but after spending so much time with Colin, I rebuilt my own mindset. I realized that what Barrett could give me, I could achieve on my own with effort. I didn't need his condescending charity. Barrett, I don't like you anymore. Don't come looking for me again. And the baby is mine, not yours. I rejected Barrett coldly. Barrett probably didn't expect me to be so firm, which hurt his pride. Archie, don't get cocky just because you have favor. You're a low-tier Omega without Enigma now. I wonder how hard your heat will be. Actually, I can handle it fine with suppression patches, and if worse comes to worst, there are inhibitors, so you don't need to worry. For the first time, I was sharp-tongued in front of Barrett. I didn't expect that fighting back and seeing him get flustered would feel so satisfying. Colin, standing behind me, was laughing so hard he could barely stand straight. You're so handsome. He praised me without holding back. I couldn't help but blush a little. 18. Time flew by, and every moment I was working hard to grow. When Grace was 3, my paintings had already gained international fame, thanks to Dane's connections in the entertainment industry. I had held several large exhibitions, all well received. This time, I had to travel to Country A for a conference, so Grace had to stay with Colin. Colin hugged the chubby Grace tightly and said goodbye to me reluctantly. Just before boarding the plane, he suddenly leaned close to my ear and whispered mysteriously, "Have you really never thought about having an epic OO romance with me? The sweet kind." I smiled and tapped his forehead, imitating his tone as I answered mysteriously, "It's not impossible." Now I could stand proudly by Colin's side, no longer trapped by feelings of inferiority. I saw a dazzling light flash in Colin's eyes, and before he could contain it, I hurried away dragging my suitcase to board. The smile on my face hadn't faded. Unexpectedly, I bumped into Barrett in business class. This time, Barrett had a little Omega with him. Not to sound vain, but this Omega looked especially like me. I sat a few rows behind and heard the little Omega cross his arms and fiercely criticize Barrett's fatherly remarks, even threatening that if Barrett kept acting arrogant, he'd kick him out and not bother with him. Barrett was so angry he could only rage impotently, while the little Omega happily munched on chips beside him. Things were really looking up. With more outstanding Omegas emerging in society, the status of Omegas was rising. People like Barrett with outdated Enigma views were surely going to be phased out soon. I covered my mouth to stifle a laugh. Suddenly a phrase came to mind. Life tried to bury me, but it didn't know I was a seed.